Hello, my name is Daren Abney with Lenzing Fibers. Thank you to TRIPPIN'BLUE for the opportunity to join you today for a brief introduction to driving the SDGs in textiles. I have been with Lenzing since January of 2021 and in the textile space for roughly 15 years. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. Before we dive into the topic, I'd like to also briefly introduce Lenzing for those of you who might not be familiar. Lenzing is a man-made cellulosic fiber producer who is headquartered in Lenzing, Austria, and we manufacture roughly 1.1 million tons of fiber every year around the world at our different facilities. The group is publicly listed in the Vienna Stock Exchange with just over 7,500 employees and a group revenue of roughly 2.2 billion euros annually. The company, as I mentioned, manufactures wood-based cellulose fiber. So the key with Lenzing is that sustainability in the scope of our work is really rooted at the raw material source, which is wood. We source only wood from sustainably managed forests that are meeting FSC or PEFC certifications, and we transform that into a fiber that's used both in the textile industry and the nonwoven industry, as well as some other business areas. So keeping that in mind, Lenzing as an organization is operating across the supply chain at the very beginning of where retailers and brands may source their material. Today, we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Hopefully, you're familiar with the SDGs. This is something that was created in 2015 as a universal framework through the United Nations Summit, where 193 member states adopted the agenda for 2030 for sustainable development. And these sustainable development goals are really a universal framework and language for all industries to be able to talk about sustainability in a way that's universal. So it's like a commonality in your language. This plan addresses global challenges, including poverty, inequity, and climate change. And it focuses on 17 specific SDGs that you can see on the screen now. Lenzing recognizes its responsibility and sees its pioneering role in the textile and nonwoven industry as an opportunity to contribute to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And in today's presentation, I'd like to explain how and why. The naturally positive sustainability strategy supports the following SDGs. That is the corporate sustainability strategy from Lenzing Group. So for Lenzing, these 6 SDGs that you see on the screen now, number 7, 9, 12, 13, 15, and 17, are particularly important because their themes address these fields of the company's activity where Lenzing can have the most positive impact. If we break that down, SDGs 1, 3, 6, 8, and 14 are more about the future. They're really further important goals which Lenzing addresses by the way that we operate our business in a more sustainable way. And I'll explain more about that. Goal number 7, SDG number 7, is meant to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Pulp and fiber production, it's an energy-intensive process. Lenzing is contributing to SDG 7 by improving energy efficiency, using energy conservation technologies for heat and electricity, employing renewable fuels, switching from coal to natural gas, and implementing its biorefinery concept. As you can see shown on the screen, dissolving wood pulp biorefineries at Lenzing at 2 of our sites is not only self-sufficient in terms of meeting its own energy needs, it actually produces a surplus of energy. And that surplus of energy in the form of steam and electricity is used on site, for instance, for fiber production and maybe export to the local grid. The biorefinery concept in a facility for sustainable production of biomass into a spectrum of marketable biomass products and bioenergy. So dissolving wood pulp is the most important raw material used in producing Lenzing's wood-based cellulose fibers. The Lenzing Group operates 2 production pulp plants, one at the Lenzing headquarters in Austria and one within the Czech Republic. The biorefinery concept ensures that 100% of the wood constitutes are used to produce fibers, bio-based chemicals, bioenergy, thereby maximizing value creation from an economic and environmental perspective, meaning 100% of the tree is completely used in the production process. The surplus energy that's used is also feeding local communities. Lenzing's also contributing to SDG number 9, and this is the goal that's really meant to address a resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. So innovation and sustainability are at the heart of Lenzing's S-Core 10 strategy. This is our internal corporate strategy. Every new development, whether it be process, product, or application related, is evaluated from the very beginning in terms of sustainability. Thinking about sustainably and paying due regard to both the life cycle and perspective and the net benefit principle are decisive in innovations at Lenzing. Sustainable innovations include continuous improvement of Lenzing's existing technologies and processes, as well as driving systemic change through forward solutions and business models on a large scale. The other part to think of is the net benefit product. What does that mean? Well, Lenzing is contributing with innovative net benefit products such as Tencel Model EcoColor, Tencel lyocell fibers with Refibra technology. The use of Lenzing Model EcoColor, which is a dope dyed process, allows avoiding resource-intensive conventional methods of dyeing. This reduces energy use and lowers CO2 emissions in the value chain. Lyocell fibers with Refibra technology are made by partly using textile scraps, thereby avoiding textile waste and virgin fiber production. Further to that, Lenzing addresses this challenge by developing sustainable technologies such as the biorefinery concept and the closed-looped lyocell production process. In the biorefinery concept, dissolving wood pulp is the most important raw material, as I mentioned, and we are using this at a wide scale growth. Also, circularity is an important component that is growing in popularity and visibility in the textile industry today. And Lenzing as a company unites the cellulose fiber cycle with its own wood-based products and its innovative technologies that focus on closing loops and recovering. So it's technical cycles. And in that technical cycle, Lenzing aims to minimize the environmental footprint and to improve resource efficiency by closing the loops of fiber production technologies with state-of-the-art recovery rates. Following the net benefit principle, Lenzing also considers downstream value chains. So Lenzing's Refibra technology recycles cellulose waste from garment making into dissolving wood pulp and feeds it back into the fiber production without any loss of quality. With its focus on partnering for a systemic change, Lenzing strives to identify the develop cross-industry business cases to make progress in circularity of Lenzing as well as for the industry. Also addressing SDG 12 or Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is really meant to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Lenzing ensures this by addressing sustainable sourcing, the efficient use of raw material wood, and efficient and sustainable production processes, e.g. through the implementation of that biorefinery concept. Also, life cycle thinking and partnerships with stakeholders along the value chain contribute to more sustainable consumption patterns. Wood sourcing from sustainable forestry operations. Wood and dissolving wood pulp are the most important raw materials for Lenzing, and we assume responsibility by sourcing wood from sustainable forestry operations covered by certifications. Plantations can reduce the deforestation pressure on natural or primary forest areas by providing wood at very high yield rates per unit area as an alternative to sourcing it from natural forest. Plantations with FSC certification fulfill management criteria to protect biodiversity. The management practices include a certain percentage of set-aside conservation areas. Lenzing also actively contributes to the protection and preservation of forest. Biorefinery dissolving wood pulp is the most important raw material. And that concept ensures that 100% of the wood is used, as I previously mentioned. Dissolving wood pulp production at the two sites also offers a surplus of energy. And the company realizes the use of circularity within the cellulose space by scaling up that concept using the Tencel lyocell with Refiber technology. In the technical cycle, Lenzing aims to minimize the environmental footprint to improve resource efficiency by closing loops on fiber production. The lyocell process uses 1/3 of the water required by the viscose process, which is related to then SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. Waste management is also an important part of the process. Recyclable fractions of waste are separated and sent for recycling. Upcycling fractions are disposed of in accordance with local legislation. Wherever possible, Lenzing uses that unrecyclable fractions to produce energy, for example, in incinerations with energy recovery. Landfilling of non-hazardous waste is also an important part of the process. Then you can see on the screen Canopy's hot button report. In Canopy, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Canada that focuses on rating companies who are producing wood-based cellulose fiber in all areas of operation, including their sourcing. And in the latest hot button report, you can see that Lenzing achieved the best score via the green shirt. So you have this dark green button on the screen, and this is an important tool industry to be able to quickly evaluate producers of wood-based cellulose material to make sure that you're sourcing more sustainable processes and fibers. There's also the Material Sustainability Index, or the MSI, which is a quantitative part of the Higg Index, scoring materials against their environmental impacts in categories against global warming, water scarcity, etc. Leaders in the industry and multi-stakeholder initiatives are increasingly using metrics based on a life cycle analysis, such as this SAC MSI. Lenzing's fibers are also a part of this process, and we submit data on a regular basis. Also working with organizations like Textile Exchange, we know that Tencel Model and Lenzing EcoVero Viscose have been newly added to the preferred fibers list by Textile Exchange, along with the previously listed Tencel branded lyocell fiber as preferred fibers for the textile industry. Talking about SDG 13, which is focused on taking urgent action to tackle climate change and its impacts, by setting a science-based target, Lenzing takes action to tackle climate change-related problems. Lenzing committed itself to reducing aggregated greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030 compared to a 2017 baseline. The Science Based Targets Initiative has scientifically validated Lenzing's climate target and confirms that the target is in line with the Paris Agreement's central aim to limit global temperature rise this century by 2 degrees Celsius. Further to that, the Lenzing Group is a member of the CEO Climate Leaders Group of the World Economic Forum and a signatory of the United Nations Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action. A lot of organizations out there are focused on doing good and doing it in a way that is measurable and doing it in a way that is tangible. So you can't improve what you don't measure. That's the old rule that we've always heard and we always know. Related to the SDGs and this common framework and this common language is really pushing industry to look at the way that they're operating. And this is one of the ways in which Lenzing is taking substantial steps to address that with tangible numbers associated with our operation. If we look at SDG 15, to sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. Obviously, a critical SDG for the entire globe. There's different impacts in different regions, and Lenzing, as a global company, also addresses this. With a long-standing practice of responsible sourcing, in particular with regard to our main raw material wood, the company contributes towards SDG 15. Since all Lenzing fibers are compostable and biodegradable in soil, freshwater, and salt water, Lenzing has really looked at ways in which our fibers are coming from nature and going back to nature. Wood sourcing from sustainable forest operations, wood and dissolving wood pulp are the most important aspects of looking at deforestation and using plantation owners as partners to address this deforestation. Plantations with FSC certification fulfill management criteria to protect biodiversity, and the management practices include a certain percentage of set aside conservation. So the social aspect of these forests and the people that they employ are also an important aspect of that certification and ways in which they're directly addressing biodiversity. SDG 17, to revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. You can see a lot of different organizations on the screen now that Lenzing works with. And the baseline around this for me is operation. Finding partners that directly impact your operation and ways that you can contribute to improvement is critical in the textile community. So Lenzing acknowledges that complex global challenges call for a collaborative approach, and we regularly engage with a wide group of stakeholders across the textile industry, which is true in South America. There's a lot of organizations who are focused on improving their footprint by collaborating with organizations who may already be doing the same. So SDG 17 is just that call for partnership, and it's something that I believe is part of the conversation today. So looking at the SDGs and how they're important, not just for your operation, not just for our industry, but for all industry and all the world's operation, I think this has hopefully been a helpful introduction to this overall SDG concept and how you guys are potentially incorporating this into your day-to-day business. And I just wanted to close today with a quick example of ways in which we're taking action around specific projects in SDG 1, SDG 3 that you can see on screen, and SDG 6. These are just small examples on ways in which the Lenzing Group has found ways to address a framework that is within the confines of our operation, but obviously have a global impact. So if you are considering looking at the SDGs for your company and you're looking at ways that you might be able to implement them, I would say that there is plenty of framework available in the industry today for you to be able to do that. And I would encourage you to consider reaching out to the SDGs. You can find them at un.com and, excuse me, un.org/SDGs and get more information about how you could implement the SDGs in your own company. Again, my name is Daren Abney with Lenzing Fibers. I appreciate your time and attention today, and thanks for your time.